Can't see me in here. See me on the side. Okay. So I finally got this presentation finished. It took me a while to get my map ready to go. The last few nights. I just finished it up right now. I didn't really prepare too much as far as talking is concerned, but no. Um, this is a flowchart I created based on my research of how I see the um, flow of religion and humanity from Africa to the Egyptian pharaohs, Christianity, and government. Um, so I'm just going to talk about this a little bit. It's not going to be very long. I think just the flow chart itself is the most important, and it's very easy to understand. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about each part of it, and that's it. Um, it's not a continuation of my previous research from where I last left off. This is actually jumping ahead a little bit, but I feel that this is important information for people to understand because a lot of people don't understand this, and they don't understand unless you spend several years researching it. You're not going to understand this how it evolved. So that's what I wanted to share on this video. So we're going to start in Africa, of course, the motherland continent, where supposedly people first evolved from, in down near the Great Lakes region, by the um, you know the Serengeti Plain, uh, Lake Nyanza, now Lake Victoria, um, Kenya, Ethiopia. So that's the starting point. And then if we move on to how people's beliefs eventually evolved, which beliefs are, what religion is people's beliefs. So if we move next into nature, so nature is just obvious. I mean, we've lost our with modern society, we've lost our exposure to nature. Um, now we have TVs, phones, everything that we get away from nature, so we no longer experience that. But one of the examples that I would give that's related to this is that when I was a little kid, I used to play in the little wash that was behind my house, and I used to go down there and catch frogs when it would rain and dig holes and you know observe all the different animals and stuff that were there, and um, and sometimes just being like 10 or 10, 11, 12 years old, you would just get a sense of like something's there. You would just have a feeling, sometimes that something was there, like whether it was the wind that passes through through the wash area. You felt like something was there with you, especially if you were alone, is when you would experience that. And that's the best example of what I can give for this, to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, is that feeling. As you're out in nature, you're alone, you hear all the sounds, you feel the breeze, it's just you, and you're in the outside, and there's nothing else around you, and you just sometimes you just get a sense that something's with you. So that leads to people getting the impression that there's, that the earth, the world, the sky, space, what they can see and observe with their own eyes, feel, touch, everything, they felt that there was something greater than themselves in the world. They didn't know how to explain it. They didn't know what it was. They just felt that it was there, that it was there with them. So we named that the Great Spirit. Um, with that, people being in their environment, you would have to seek shelter from the elements of the environment, the what you encounter, the storm, the rains, the thunder, the lightning, the sunshine. You would have to seek shelter to protect yourself from those, those elements, those systems of the earth, the weather systems of the earth. So people started believing that there was, uh, a god that was mad at them, or that it was their dead ancestors that were still lurking around as spirits that, you know. So the first really evidence of people thinking of a god is like a storm god, you know, the thunder, the lightning, the rain. If you look at, um, great apes like gorillas or chimpanzees, they try to avoid the rain. They try to get out of the rain. They don't like it. They don't want to be sitting in it, so they try to seek shelter from it. And then, after that, or around the same time as that, is we is people having to deal with death, their family deaths, their parents deaths. And they would, you know they thought that the spirits of their ancestors were still there afterwards, after they died, that they stayed around with them, and they felt that they had to keep them happy. They if they didn't keep them happy, then something bad would happen to them. So they started to, you know create little, as they were traveling and moving from space to space. They would, create little altars and venerate their ancestors, give them something, give them food, so they would stay happy, because every time something bad happened, they thought it was, you know, because they did something wrong, or they're not keeping their ancestors happy. So that was kind of more than likely broadly all throughout Africa. But once you get into, so if you look at my previous lectures, people move from East Africa around the Great Lakes area. They move south into Southern Africa, and then they move north. So as they're moving north into East Africa is when we start to get um, the greatest new ideas, new ideas as far as religion. Um, and if you should refer to my previous lectures, because I go into a lot of depth in all of this stuff. So it's there for you to look at, and I advise you to look at it. It's, take the time and just listen to it, There's a lot of information there that you'll get that you probably won't hear anywhere else. Um, so East Africa is Kenya, Ethiopia, Sudan, uh, Djibouti, Eritrea, Egypt. Egypt's more northeast Africa, and Tanzania, Uganda. That's what we're when we're talking about East Africa. Um, Predominantly around like Lake Turkana area, and then moving north into Ethiopia, and also moving northwest down in through where Sudan is. You have a split, so there must have been a split of people um, early on from Uganda and Kenya up north to Ethiopia and to the Sudan area. So from Ethiopia, they moved all the way down to through the uh, down to where the Red Sea is and the Gulf of Aden is down on the coast. And those people are the Afro-Asiatic would eventually become the Afro-Asiatic people. Um, and then the ones that moved to the northwest more north were were the people that would become the Nilo-Saharan people. If you look at my chart here, you can see that what I'm talking about. And so these are the two most important groups of people, as far as I'm concerned, related to Egypt. These are the two most important groups of people. The Afro-Asiatic people were the largest group of people, according. Uh, I use Christopher Earhart's book as a great reference. Without his book, I wouldn't understand this stuff. So, when we're getting in around like 15,000 BC, 13,000 BC, 11,000 BC, we have these two groups of people in that area. They're the two largest groups of people and the two most important people. No. So if I switch to my map here, we can see here, I have them um, outlined here for you on my map. So in this blue circled area are the Nilo-Saharan people. And in this larger yellow area is what we call the Afro-Asiatic people, the origin of them, according to my research of what I go by. So if you just imagine if you look at my arrow on the screen, they're moving from Uganda, Kenya, and they're moving down through this flatter plain, kind of, you know, low grassland area down here through the White Nile flows down here. We can't see it here. I don't have it here, but it's on my previous maps and my previous lectures. So just imagine that you got people over time, thousands of years, flowing down through this area, down the White Nile into this blue area, and settling here. Around 11,000 BC for these guys is when we have, you know, evidence of their group, of their culture, This is called the Middle Nile Basin culture, and then it would be later be known as Nilo-Saharan culture, and this is modern day Sudan, the country of Sudan, with its capital Khartoum here. So this culture is actually the city of Khartoum is actually contained in this culture and has existed for since at least I know at least 8,000 BC, but it was probably there already at 11,000 BC. And then if you imagine the other way, the opposite direction, so if there was a split, if these people, early on, thousands of years before these even cultures even became to be known or existed, possibly there could have been a split of a tribe or a group of people that said, okay, let's split. You go this way, we go this way. That we don't know, but that could have happened. But for sure, people must have went both directions. So if they're moving north, you have the Rift Valley here. They travel through the Rift Valley, through Ethiopia, down here to this flat area and hit the coast. Then you probably had a large population buildup of people here, down here, and then eventually here in the Ethiopian highlands, where this green foresty area is at. But these are two separate cultures that I'm talking about. So the Afro-Asiatic people are in the yellow, the Nilo-Saharan people are in the blue, and as you can see, the Afro-Asiatic people is earlier and larger and more important as far as Egypt is concerned early on beforehand. They this yellow line here is the modern day Egyptian border. So you can see that they overlapped into modern day Egypt at 13,000 BC. This is 13,000 BC. This is the area of their influence at 13,000 BC. So they're actually overlap into Egypt and are in Egypt at 13,000 BC before any Nilo-Saharan people are in Egypt. Whoever was here before, I probably have that information, but that's not for this lecture. We're not concerned with that. We want to start. These two people are the most important. These two people are the people who affected the culture and the religion of ancient Egypt later on. Okay, I want to emphasize that point. Um, so back to my flowchart, we talked about the Afro-Asiatic people. They are also in the Ethiopian highlands. That's where they came. Where we think that they probably came from originally, after they had already moved into Ethiopia. The Nilo-Saharan people are centered at Khartoum, which is part of what is known as Nubia. I just showed you the Khartoum, the capital of Sudan. And then probably after that, eventually, as population increased and people started dividing into family, you know, families and larger families and clans and tribes, they had to identify themselves somehow. So they adopted totemism, which is just an identification of your family tree or your family tribe. And more than likely it was, it could have, mostly it was animals, but it was also plants, different kind of foods, so on, like, water, uh, fish, different kind, different animals and stuff. But the main two that we're concerned about and that we think about when we study Egypt is the serpent tribe and then the hawk tribe. So serpent tribe is at I believe that it came from the Afro-Asiatic people who are already in Egypt, and this is the tribe and the symbol. The snake symbol is what becomes the symbol of the royalty, the royal family of Egypt. And then the hawk, as you know, is a symbol of, Horus or Heru, the god Horus, or the god Heru, um, in ancient Egypt, who was more like you know, a warrior, like a hero. So Heru, hero, you can change if you spell Heru, Heru, you can interchange vowels in the Egyptian language because they didn't use vowels. So it was just HR. And then, so if you think about, so it could be spelled Hero, hero, right? Which, when you get into the later legends and mythology of Egypt, you read the stories about what Horus did when he helped Ra. And we'll talk about that more in a little bit. But um, so these are the two most important. That these become the two most important as far as I'm concerned. Um, we know in my research, I haven't did a lecture on it yet, but I will eventually. That 4000 BC, Upper Egypt, and you know south of Upper Egypt to the east, there was a serpent tribe that covered the whole area. Um, and that would become later the Nakata culture. So let me go back to my map real quick just to show one more interesting thing to get you thinking. So Khartoum, so we just said Heru's name is HR. Oh, my cat. HR, um, without the vowels. So if you look at the beginning of cartoon, you got KHAR. You can see his name in there. And if you get rid of the A, you just put. They didn't use H, but they didn't use H in Egyptian. I don't believe until later on, and you actually have KHR is actually Christ, the beginning of Christ. Okay, and then the tomb is, you can change these, and you can change these to TEM or TUM, and that's actually the god, the name of Ra, Atem or um, Atum. Atem is the younger Ra in the morning, the rising sun, and then TUM is the setting sun. So you would have Adam the Christ. It's they give it to you right there, which is just. I mean, I haven't heard anybody, I haven't heard anybody talk about that, but it's just right there in front of your face. Um, so that's okay. So you have Khartoum here in Nubia, and then you have the Hawk tribe. So I believe that the Hawk tribe comes from Khartoum, and Nubia. That I believe that comes from Nubia, and the serpent tribe comes from the Afro-Asiatic people in Ethiopia. And then, so the religious beliefs, as far as God is concerned, with the Afro-Asiatic people was that they their what involved in their clan, their clan based, a lot of, separated by clans into different clans. They're clan based with a, a leader in each for each clan, which is usually a elder of the family, or a head of the family. It's not always family members, but other people can join the clan, but it's usually they're connected to one person that they all connect to in the past. And that person became an intermediary between God and the people. So they look to him for um, to interpret what God is telling them, right? He just became smart from his observations of the people. He learned how to, manipulate, and he gained power from his position, and he him as a man, he became a god. That's very important to understand. He became a god himself. He thought that he was a god himself, and the people around him believed that he was, or that at least he was the person who was connected most to God. So they went to him for their spiritual beliefs, or their questions, their whatever related to that comes later in religious beliefs. you know Contrary and the opposite to that is in the Nubian culture, as the you know they only believed in a sky. They believed in one sky god, a sky god, just one only. Which, you know I might as well bring this up now since we're here. Um, a lot of people try to say that um, the Pharaoh Akhenaten is the first person who started monotheism, the belief in one God, which is not true, because 9,000 BC, the Nilo-Saharan people believed in one sky god only. That's the only God that they believed in. They didn't they That early on, I don't know if they interacted with anybody else and knew of any other gods. I don't think they did. I think they were isolated that early on, and they only believed in one God. So monotheism starts with them, you know, 9,000 BC. Akhenaten is like 1500 BC. So, and if you and Judaism, the belief in Yahweh, that's even later than that. So anybody who says that Israel started monotheism, or the Pharaoh Akhenaten started monotheism, they haven't done their research. They're starting too late in their research, and they need to go farther back and do their research farther back. And you'll see, if you look into the Nilo-Saharan people's religious beliefs, the middle Nile basin, people living on the Nile, upriver in Sudan, 9,000 BC or so, around that time, already believed in one God only. Their people could not be God. They're in contrast to the Afro-Asiatic people who thought that they can become a God. they couldn't become a god, but the Nilo-Saharan people, through kinship, through the male line, developed developed kingships, and they so eventually later on down the line, small small local semi states of semi kingships of states began to spring up from the Nilo-Saharan people in the Sudan along the Nile. They believed that they were king of the earth, passed on from father to son. So, and then eventually, let me get something to drink real quick. I'll be right back. Just 5 seconds. Okay, sorry about that, but that's already a lot of stuff to digest right there, as it is to understand and to think about. If you're wondering where that comes from, this is where it comes from. So if you actually do your research like I did, and you want to know the origin of these things, this is where it comes from right here. No matter what anybody says to you, this is where it comes from. So if you interested in this kind of stuff and you like what I'm talking about, then you should watch all my videos, and you should start from the very first one, and you should take it seriously, and you should take notes, and you should think about it, and then I just build up onto it more and more and more until we'll eventually get to the more of the details of this kind of stuff. But I've been focusing a lot more on just this because I've been trying to identify some of the pharaohs to the people in the Bible. So I had to figure this stuff out, and I wanted to know where did they really come from, and this is where they really came from. So eventually, around 4000 BC, we have the Nakata culture that's developing within Egypt. Oh wait, let me go back to my map first, just to show you, um, because we're not at 4000 BC yet. So okay, just again real quick, Nilo-Saharan, Middle Nile Basin tradition, 11,000 BC, Afro-Asiatic culture, all this large area, and for sure they moved across the Red Sea into Arabia, and into the Persian Gulf. For sure, this group right here becomes. You're gonna see how big it becomes right now. I'm gonna show you. It dominates, and it move for sure. It moves across the Red Sea into um, into the southern part. I just want to. They move north, but they also move through this Gulf of Aden and into Persian Gulf for sure, 100%. You know, Christopher Earhart doesn't explain that because he's only in his book or in his research because he's only focused on Africa, so he stops at Africa. But it would be hard to believe that. Let me show you how they spread. So so if we if I'm showing you the Afro-Asiatic people here, and this is Nubia right here. This is considered Lower Nubia right here. So first off early on, the Afro-Asiatic people control Nubia, lower Nubia and upper Nubia. They control it. They're the first ones to settle there before the Nilo-Saharans settled there. But you're going to see that the Nilo-Saharan people pushed them north. So what happens is the Nilo-Saharan people expand out, they grow, they develop an aquatic culture, and they develop a cattle pastorist culture that expands and dominates and pushes the Afro-Asiatics north. Let me show you that. And then they still occupy their same original territory, but now they occupy all this territory across the modern Egyptian border, west across the Sahel, or the Saharan desert. Okay, so you see how much larger of a territory they expand to? One second. Then they push the Afro-Asiatic people north, but they also expand, and then look at how large they expand. So this group in the yellow, they evolve and expand into a new culture called what Christopher Earhart calls Northern Eritreans, Eritrean from the country Eritrea right here, and they go on to control all of Egypt, all of the Sinai, and then all of northern Africa. See that? All of northern Africa. And even before this, they're already moving into Canaan and um, Israel and so on. I'm not sure. I'm not going to talk about that right now, but I have that. I have those features on my map. I have, hundreds of features on my map, but they're not selected right now. These are the people that move in to Israel 13,000 BC to 11,000 BC. They mix with the natives who were, I think that, I can't remember the name but they mix, they dominate. The native culture adopts their culture and assimilates with them. They bring the grain, the harvesting of um, grasses into the Levant. They bring it. These are the people that bring that there. They're the originators of that. So the Levant um, origination of cultivation of farms and so on begins in Africa with these people. So you see how the two cultures border each other. They're at each other's border. They know their boundary. They know what their boundaries are, and they respect their boundaries. And they're two separate people living side by side. Also, there's a third people who are involved with this, and these are the Kushite people, Kushites. And excuse my drawing on this one, I don't have a border on the south, but 9000 BC, you see over here 9000, the Kushites, 9000 BC to 6700 BC from this red area. So they're on the Red Sea hills east. So let's get rid of uh, rid of these two originals, and now we have these three who are living next to each other. You have the Kushites, not to be confused with what later becomes known as Kush over here with the K, but Kushites who are descendants of those original Afro-Asiatic people that had the yellow border first. They're here in the Red Sea Hills on the coast, and for sure they're on the other side of this in Arabia too. For sure, 100%. Then you have the ancient Egyptians who are spread out all across North America, and then the Nilo-Saharan people who are have all this area in the blue. Okay, so that's so you know what I want to just show you that so you know the people that were in this area first. Let's go back to my flowchart here. Okay, so so we have so now we want to talk about the Nakata culture and the A group culture of Nubia. So Nakata culture is so now we go to 4000 BC. But let me show you one more real quick. Sorry, but it's important to we don't want to exclude. So not them. So Kushites are spread out all the way. So not only do the Afro-Asiatic people move, not only do they move north, but they also spread out south, and for sure they spread out east. So they're spread out all the way down here. They're spread out. They're here, here. You see these circles down here in Ethiopia? They're they're here. In this orange just popped up. All the Ethiopian highlands. So they cover all of Ethiopia pretty much. The Ethiopia highlands, all of Ethiopia, all of Egypt. So these people are more similar. These people, where my arrows at, are more similar to the Kushites here in Somalia. They're more similar to the Kushites here. They're more similar to the ancient Egyptians and North Africans than they are to the Nilo-Saharan Africans here. And this is the one I'm looking for. Kushites. No. Oh, what happened? This one. Okay, and all in this black area, 5000 BC. So we're getting down to 5000 BC now, and the Nilo-Saharans. They also the map's gonna get see they expand south. So the map is gonna start getting more cluttered. I don't want that to happen, but so I just want to show you how these people spread out. Okay, and then let me get rid of some of these. Okay, so so we're getting up to 5000 BC. So there, what I wanna emphasize is there's a third people involved in ancient Egypt, because you on this coast, on the Red Sea Hills coast, and it probably expands even more north into Egypt. You have Cushites, not the same Cushites that are over here that you hear about with the Cushites with the K. They're not the same. Um, so you have Cushites, you have you have Nubians. So these are Nubians now. Once we get to 4000 BC, these are Nubians, these are Cushites, these are ancient Egyptians. Okay, we have those three different cultures in this area around Egypt. So you want to know, where did the ancient Egyptians come from? These are the three people, 5000 BC. This is their locations. This is where they're at. Okay? We have the border of Egypt right here. So we can see that they're crossed the northern border. They're crossed. The Nubians are crossed in Egypt across the southern border. And then let's pop this one on and zoom in some. Okay, so Nakata culture, and Nakata means snake. Nak is a snake or serpent. So we talked about that serpent tribe. They think that they're God, and they're showing you their culture is just the snake culture here. By they give you the name Nakata. That's the name. If you change, you can change D and T. The letters D and T interchange. So this is the land of the snake. The land of the snake is what Nakata means. It can mean. It might have different. It might have a couple different meanings, but when I explain it as the land of the snake. They're in Egypt now. What is going to be Egypt at 4000 BC? They're in Egypt. They become the most important and the dominating culture of ancient Egypt. Where let's stop right there. Let's just stop right there. Okay, and then the A group culture, which is coming from the kings. So you have the gods over here, and you have the kings over here in Nubia, which leads to the A group culture through archaeology. So the archaeologists call them the A group culture. They are. Let me go back to my map. So the A group culture is in this red area. Here's the yellow is the southern border. They're in this red area up to Aswan, right at the border of the Egyptians. They're right at the border of the Egyptians, right next to each other. The Nakata culture is at Abydos, Heracompolis, and Nakata, which I don't have here on my map, but it's, you see my little hand? It's in here. It's also right in here, this area. Okay? And what I don't, what I, well, I guess the Badarian culture, the Nakata culture, is continuous with the Badarian culture that's already in Egypt. Because I wasn't sure if, because they, some of the researchers try to say that the god Ra comes from out of Egypt, and I, I've been thinking about that. So where can he come from? So I was thinking, is he a Cushite? Because the Cushites are east along the Red Sea, and right here where Coptos is at, Thebes is at, coming into this area, the shortest distance to the Nile River from the sea is right here. And so I was thinking, are they Cush? Could they be Cushites? See, this is the shortest distance from the sea. The Cushites are all along here, along the coast of the sea. So did the Nakata culture come in from here and then settle here? Oh, here's Nakata. I got Nakata on my map. Here it is, right here. Uh, so around, it should be a K, not a Q. Around 1950, they changed the spelling. I think they tried to throw you off. They changed it from a K to a Q. But if you look at the earlier research, it was always a K. And also, Nakata, if you look at the Hebrew Bible, it's called the Tanakh, right? And they just try to throw an H on there, the Hebrew H, to throw you off, or just to make it Hebrew and not Egyptian, right? Because Egyptians didn't use H. So Tanakh is Tanakh. Take the H off, you got Tanak, right? Knock, snake. The Ta is the land of the snakes. Okay? Um, so the Nakata culture is at Abydos. It originates at Nakata and Heracompolis, which is more of a ritual site. So you have this main culture of Egyptians here in this area, and then just, I think, more on Aswan. My lines might be a little messed up as you zoom in, but this is more at Aswan. The um, the A group Nubians are here, and it's probably here to. I probably should fix this to Aswan. Um, so you have these two main cultures side by side, right? Doing everything that you can think of: trade, controlling the trade routes, feuding with each other, getting along with each other, maybe intermixing with each other. Probably, yeah, because Earhart says that there's 3,000 years of interconnection and inter mingling between these two types of people. So with Abu Simbel as a main center for, which I think is Custil, um, Brian Williams from University of Chicago, who did his archaeology work in Custil, and he said that there was already kingdoms here before there were even any in Egypt, which makes sense, should make sense to you from what I've been talking about. Um, okay, so let's go back. So now you have the map and you see where they are. I'm a geographer, so that's, maps are the way that I show and explain things. So eventually, all that leads to these two groups of people fighting, and I call it the Taseti Lower Nubian and Upper Egyptian Wars. So they were having wars, and these stories are in the legends of Ra and of Horus. These wars are in those legends and myths. So you have these two people fighting each other, and I think it was first the Nubians came across, defeated the the Egyptians, and then later on the Egyptians moved south and defeated the Nubians. But aside from that, what you get here is, so let's talk about the origin of Christianity. This is the origin of Christianity right here. This is it. This is the beginning of it. And the beginning of Christianity is the combining of man as God and the king on earth. Those two combined together is the birth of Christianity. You have Jesus, who is a man, he's a God, and he's a king. Once once these wars were finished, these two cultures are combined into one. The A group is totally destroyed. I don't know for sure yet. I haven't did all the research on this, but some people have said that, so the Egyptians destroyed the A group, and what probably happened was they didn't kill the royal family. They didn't kill the kings. They didn't kill the king's family. They probably surrendered, or they probably already had some kind of a relationship already with the Egyptians, but their warriors and their army got wiped out. Probably some of their civilians got wiped out, and any survivors moved into Egypt with the Nakata culture. And these two different belief systems combine together, and that's your birth of Christianity right there. The God, man as God, and man as king of the earth combined together. I don't know 100% of when. So, according to these wars, Ra already existed at this time. So, but which I'm not quite 100% sure if that's true or not. I don't know. Like they say, Ptah is older than Ra, and Ptah is a sun god. So maybe sun worship, because the sun and the serpent together of the royal family go hand in hand together. So if they already existed already at the first dynasty of Egypt during these wars, because this occurred before even the first dynasty of Egypt, if Ra actually, because he was, I believe he was a real person. He's a real person. The legends and the stories talk about him. He's a real person. He is the first Jesus. He's the first Christ on earth. He's the first one. He's Adam. So he's As a god, he is Ra. Adam is like what I explained to you. Atom, Atem, or Atum. The T can be changed to a D, which is Adam in your Bible. So Adam is the man on earth. He's the king. He's the king on earth, and Ra is the god on earth. So both of those combined together is Christianity. So, but I don't think that that starts until the fifth dynasty, the beginning of the fifth dynasty. From because the fifth, I'm getting into more than I'll talk about that another time because that's that's more information I'll talk about. I didn't want to even talk about that right now, but it really. So let's just move on from there. So somewhere in there you get the priest. The priests are the priest of Ra. The priesthood of Ra are the ones who appoint the king or the pharaoh. They're the ones who decide who's going to be pharaoh, who's going to be the priesthood of Ra. With with the creation of this Christianity and Ra, these two cultures develop and Egypt becomes a unified state, and Ra is the state deity, the state god. This, this stuff is really amazing that that they don't explain it to us where this stuff came from. It's you have to figure it out on your own, and nobody that well I got this from a book from Catherine Bard's book uh, on Egyptian archaeology, where she says that Ra becomes the state deity of the unified state of Egypt. From that, you have you have the creation of religious institutions. So powerful religious institutions. Example is like the Catholic Church, right? But this is first. This one is first. And here is when you start having people controlled by religion under a state, controlled by the state, and controlled by a religious state, religious institution, which is the birth of government, of a state government. So, okay, all right, makes sense. And then fifth dynasty, priest of Ra, his name is User or Asar. Asar is the same. You switch these vowels around. A instead of USER, ASER, ASAR. You can switch them around. Or his name is Osiris. This is the same. User and Osiris are the same. So fifth dynasty, that's him. That's the high priest of Sakabu. Now, I didn't want to include Sakabu, but that's near. I guess I think it's somewhere near Heliopolis, right? The city of the sun. So these guys, this family, this family, with him being the leader, and don't forget about his wife, Rat or Rat or Rat. Um, that family is the beginning of the fifth dynasty. And okay, I'll just stop right there. I got a lot of more information on that, but we'll talk about that some another time. Um, so They come from Elephantine, the island of Elephantine. So when these wars were going on, this is just right on the border. So Seti, the land of the bow people, their warriors use bow, is in. They give it two names. It's probably originally from here, the A group culture, and after they got defeated, their their family moved north, and then the area around got moved north. They didn't move north. They were forced to move north, assimilate, intermarry with the Egyptian royal family from the Nakata culture. You have the combination of the sun and the snake together, and the hawk of Horus. Sometimes Ra has the head of the hawk as his headdress. That's just a headdress, as it's not he's a hawk or believing he's a it's a headdress that they made and they wore like a part of their costume. Um, they got that fifth dynasty comes from Elephantine, so all the other earlier dynasties from the Old Kingdom from 1 through 4 are at Memphis, way up north. But then this family, and so then around Elephantine becomes also, I guess, known as Taseti because these people are forced to move here north. Maybe they were prisoners, or maybe they just were had to live here, and then they grew and they must have become powerful somehow. They, they must have retained some of their power, but then got even more powerful. And then they moved all the way to Heliopolis, all the way up north, and they started the fifth dynasty. They're the first new, so they call them a new race, I guess, because they were Nubians, and the other previous four dynasties are Egyptians. So they're a new race of people who settle in Heliopolis, become the city of the sun, become super powerful and dominate Egypt from there on. And then when you split, so Ra, the sun god Ra, Ra is the symbol of life. They worship life. And I have this purple, red, and blue for a reason. You know, red and blue make purple. So these purple ones are kind of the combination of the two. And the red is, uh, if you look at the prefix RE, which is Ra, you can change RE. Usually it's RE, like Ray, Ra, whatever, Ro, Ru. So RE and like reborn, rebirth, re, republic, etc. So I made it red for the Republican Party of the United States. So Ra is the worship of life, and they settle at Heliopolis, Egypt. The other, so Ra Osiris, this government institution, this government religion, is actually the worship of life and death together. You separate the two, worship of life at Heliopolis, the sun god, the worship of death at Abydos, Osiris. Your birth of resurrection is Osiris, life, your birth of Christianity. Okay? I'm going to stop it right there. Thank you. Please leave comments. Please like. Thank you. I appreciate it. Please tell your friends about this. And thank you. Have a good day.